Welcome to Around the Mitten. Was that dramatic enough? No,
It's
Pastor
so
James is
round. It's the roundest
Around,
mitten.
around.
around the mitten with myself, Pastor Chris Laughlin, and my stalwart colleague and friend and antagonist, Pastor James Smith. I am of Emmanuel Lutheran Church in Allegan, and Pastor James is of Saron Lutheran Church in blank, blank.
St.
You're at
Joseph, Michigan.
St. Joseph, Michigan. Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Um, but tell us, Pastor James, who is our guest star for the week?
Well, at first, I want to thank you for the warm introduction there. And uh, Meet someone today who is definitely not an antagonist, but always a pro-tagonist. And that is our good friend, Pastor Megan Crouch, who this is a trivia factoid for our viewers out there. She was my mom's pastor at Trinity Lutheran Church in Midland. But like all good things, it did not last forever. She has flown up north to Gaylord, Michigan at Peace Lutheran Church, correct?
Yep. Yep, that's
Uh,
correct.
and as we welcome you, I'm going to startle you by doing a quick screen share to show how far we have gone. So far we're at 921 miles on our virtual road trip, and we are right here in Gaylord. So now that everyone knows where Gaylord is, another trivia fact: the same town my sister was married in. It's
Beautiful place for a
yeah,
wedding.
beautiful place for a wedding. Come on by once it's a little warmer, and stop at Peace on Sunday.
We're literally a mile off of 75. So
Can't beat that
but
with a stick.
no, you can't. But do wait until it's warmer. We got quite a bit of freezing rain last night. So
Yeah. So other than cold, freezing rain, but conveniently located next to I-75, what can you tell us about yourself and your context?
Peace Lutheran is a wonderful church. We're getting ready to celebrate 50 years of being in Gaylord, and we have a huge outreach for community connection. We've really been growing that in the last couple of years. The congregation's growing slowly, and it's a really exciting. What I love about it is we draw from several places around Lewiston and Joburg and different areas like that. But we also have a really great group of people who are dedicated to doing what they can do. Um, if if we get to a point where we're stuck on something, the question isn't, well, what do we have to give up? It's just, what is God calling us to do? What can we do? So we'll adapt and you know make changes and figure out what to do. We realized our backpack blessing wasn't really working because 600 other places are drawing backpacks, doing backpack giveaways at the same time in town. So we're having a new committee to say, what can we do? We've started a ministry going to the jail once a month and doing communion and doing some community assistance there, and they don't let themselves get overwhelmed by the fact that they can't solve the big problem. They really want to meet people where they can and be a welcoming place for everyone. I love being up here.
Glad to hear it. And speaking of potentially overwhelming, you drew the lot that is Palm Sunday or Passion Sunday, depending how you want to define it, which
I like that it was
theoretically
the
is
lock.
approximately 74% of Matthew's gospel. I'm exaggerating, but just why don't you tell us a little bit about how you all do Holy Week and Palm Sunday and what you're really going to focus on this massive Sunday?
Well, so for me, I've always wrestled with this because I want Palm Sunday to be Palm Sunday, but I also am very aware of the fact that for many people, they're just not aware of what Holy Week is. We've got a lot of people who come from different traditions, people who have never been to these kinds of services, people who come from no church background. And I really have come to think of this Sunday as more of an intro to Holy Week and the importance of it rather than just Palm Sunday or Passion Sunday. So I kind of love the idea of laying out the week, inviting people, not necessarily jumping too far ahead, but talking about why it's important for us to experience the various services that will happen throughout the week. And at peace, we start with a procession. We go in, we wave palms, and then the service kind of winds into a more serious tone as we get into a dramatic reading of the Passion narrative. We start around the Garden of Gethsemane, which is Luke 26 right now, or yeah, 26. And then we go through 27, verse 31, where they take Jesus off to be crucified. Um, I'm willing to go through the trial, but Good Friday is where Jesus is on the cross. So that's kind of, for me, that's where it is. And then we do a really fun thing afterwards where we have a pre-Easter egg hunt for the community. And we invite the community people to come in. We have crafts and games that teach kids and families about Holy Week. And then we let them go find a Easter eggs all over the church, which is a lot of fun. So,
And it does sound actually like a lot of fun. I'm curious in your as you read the narrative through the trial,
mhm.
then where is it that you will go? What will you draw out of that? Where will your sermon go? How do you handle that homiletically?
So there's so many things you can get into and so many places you can drop into. Obviously, it's a huge amount of text. That's why we do it as a dramatic reading with various images so that people can stay engaged with it throughout. For me, this year, I'm really leaning towards this trial element and talking about how Holy Week itself is is really two trials happening. There's the trial we read about with Jesus, but then happening simultaneously is the trial of humanity. And we see the success as we see Jesus. He's in the Garden of Gethsemane and he says, I don't want to do this, but if this is God's will, let it happen. He stops the violence with the sword and heals the slave of the high priest, issues the warning that people who live by the sword will die by the sword, which is going to come back later in the message. He is almost silent before the chief priests and completely silent before Pilate, and he has faith that God will do it. By the same token, humanity at the same time is utterly being condemned by in this trial. The evidence is piling up against them, from the betrayal in the first place in the garden, the disciples falling asleep as Jesus is praying, the betrayal by Jesus or Judas, the violence as they pick up the sword. Jesus has been telling them not to do that this whole time. He's not that kind of revolutionary. And then as you throw, you have Peter. And what really is striking to me this time in particular, as I was reading it again, I noticed that as Judas, I think there's a real failure when Judas, he comes back to the high priests and he's grieving. He's in agony over his choices. And their response is just, sorry about your bad luck. Um,
Yeah, this is such a great point that I heard recently is the whole idea of the temple is to deal with sin. Uh,
yes.
and then he comes in, he's got a sin he wants to confess and the grief, you're right. And yeah, sorry out of luck, mate. And it's almost proving Jesus's judgment on the temple, that it's
It,
all because remember he's thrown out the money changers. His criticism is it's all about money, you've lost your way. And yeah,
And
sorry, I got excited because I just heard this a week ago for literally the first time, and I think it's dead on. So I'm
it
happy you're
is.
going there too.
I'm reminded of one of our professors in seminary, a New Testament professor, who said, the chief priests, the elders, the scribes say to Judas, "See to it yourself."
Yeah.
And what happens when we see to it ourselves and we're left to our own devices? And then those are almost the exact same words that Pilate says to the crowd, "See to it
Yeah,
yourselves."
that's right. And that's ultimately the big question, the big trial is, will humanity embrace God or will they embrace this path of power and might makes right with by human and earthly standards? It's whose kingdom are you building? And we answer over and over again, we're building our kingdom, not God's kingdom. and that there's no point where that becomes more clear than when the crowds are cheering for Barabbas to be released, and where they come up and they say, our blood be upon us, the blood oath, which is so disturbing in this text, but so important to not just gloss over, because if we don't talk about it, we miss the point. We think that, oh, this is just a curse on the people who were there when Jesus died. It's not. It's not that at all. Matthew is writing his gospel after the Jewish revolt against Rome and the destruction of the temple. So many people were hoping Jesus was going to lead that kind of revolution, and that's where a lot of the fear that led to his crucifixion and a lot of the anger that led to his betrayal and abandonment was that he was not doing those things the way people expected that to happen. And they're choosing that path of revolution. They're choosing the sword. And it's such a powerful image there, especially when you consider that Matthew is writing knowing where that image leads will end. He's reflecting on where that path has led the people of Jerusalem. And of course, it leads to the city being destroyed and the temple being completely and utterly demolished in 70 AD. So it's really looking at, where are we going to go? Are we going to accept God's will even when it's a cup we don't want to drink from? Or are we going to try and do it ourselves? But Jesus is pointing out which one appears to lead to death and one really leads to death. And that's where I think the power of Holy Week comes in, is telling that story again and again to say, listen, we're so excited to remind ourselves of how flawed we can be, but how gracious God's love is. And we see these little glimpses throughout it of these moments where humanity has kind of redemption moments, and it's in Matthew's gospel, none of them are from the people you'd expect them to be from. They're from Judas, who is grieving so much that he kills himself. They're from Pilate's wife, who has the dream and says he's innocent, and Pilate, who understands the politics that's happening and tries to give them an out. And if you do choose to go to the end where where Jesus dies, the centurion at the foot of the cross, who recognizes who Jesus truly is, not in a mocking way, but in a sense of awe and reverence.
Yeah. Want to circle back real quick. You mentioned the verse about those who live by the sword will die by the sword. If anyone hasn't seen it yet, I want to link to my friend and protagonist, Pastor Chris Laughlin's discussion of that. We did that verse in a bonus episode. But I really like the way you laid out the way of the sword too, as kind of a binary. Jesus has got the people who are mad at him for speaking up against authority at all, and then he's got the folks who are mad and disappointed in him for not going far enough. And boy, I don't know about you, but that feels very contemporary to me.
Doesn't it?
Like,
it really fits our context, right?
Like everything is so binary, and the loudest side is the most righteous, and Jesus, like a lamb before its shearers is silent.
Yeah.
Uh, that's really hard to embrace, and I'm not always so good at it. But
Same.
I think we have to ask, what if we challenged ourselves to stand for justice and the right more like Jesus? It would probably look a lot different from how we usually do it.
Facebook would be a lot less dramatic. That's that's for sure.
But also,
No.
then it's funny you should say that, because it would also be a lot less profitable,
Oh,
right?
you're right.
So, yeah, and that's the way of the world.
And again, that is the way. I've been talking to so many people who are so struggling with these from both perspectives, people who feel isolated, alienated, and unheard, from both sides of just about every issue. And what's so heartbreaking is that we're getting so separated when Jesus is really at the center, inviting us and showing us a way we can come together. It might mean that we don't get our way, and we don't get, it doesn't all go the way we want it to go, but we can be loving people despite disagreeing. And I think that's a message we really need to hear right now. And need to remind ourselves Jesus has never stood on any one side against another person. Jesus has always been on the side of God and creation, saying, I am here for creation. I think that's the point of the people, the moments of hope coming from those unexpected people. It's not that Jesus wasn't there for the people of Judea and the Jewish people. It's that he was there for much more than just those people. And the gospel story is much bigger than the story of one culture or group. And that's why they can't accept it, is because there's all these different cultures and groups within Judea tearing them apart, trying to claim Jesus as their own. And Jesus just won't be claimed.
Yeah, exactly. And just thinking the scene in the garden, because I could see a lot of Jewish supporters telling Jesus, "This isn't what we wanted," and he's like, "Look, I didn't want this either," you know.
Right?
But I think there's a vocation for the church there too, and uh, lamenting, grieving that we're not going to always get our way, at least in the short term, and
Mhm.
God's
And
will can be done nonetheless.
yeah, leaning into the hope that eventually it will be God's will. Eventually it is God's kingdom that comes. And I have to continue to believe that that will bring many, many people together across many, many different spectrums and experiences and walks of life. I think that's always been the intention and the goal.
Well, on that note of hope, Pastor Megan, where is it? As we ask everyone, we now turn to ask you, where is it that you are finding joy these days?
Well, we had a fun conversation about TV shows and movies, so I'm very much looking forward to seeing Project Hail Mary. Okay, that's going to be exciting.
It's a good book. It's a good book.
It's a good book. Go read it. Watch the movie first, then read the book. You'll enjoy it more. Um, but I find a lot of joy in my family and in the season. Um, I love watching like my nieces and nephews learn about this stuff. I love watching the kids in my church discover why Holy Week matters and put together the puzzle pieces. And I really love getting a chance, that song, I love to tell the story. I really do love to tell the story, and Holy Week gives us a chance to do that. So even if it's not the most pleasant part of the story at this particular point, it's still a really good story that I'm excited to tell.
Well, this conversation has certainly brought us a lot of joy. Thank you for sharing your insights and your pastoral heart. We can really, I think, all feel your passion for this coming through.
Thank
Passion. That was a
you.
bad pun. That's not what I meant to
I
do.
didn't catch it. That was good.
But we are so grateful. Thank you. And
Yes.
our series is entering Holy Week. We got a couple more episodes, so we will be with you next time as the Mitten turns.